That's our opener.
Yeah, I love it.
Guys, thank God you came at the tail end of the DMV conversation. No one wants to hear that. But welcome to the waiting room. Week 2, day 1. There's a lot to talk about, but we won't even be able to get into the conversation about the games that we had last week just yet because of the new patch that dropped. 13.1b had dropped, and there's a lot in there.
I'm going to call this 13.2.
Huh?
It's 13.2. They're going to skip 13.2 and make it 13.3.
This B patch is bigger than most patches.
This is bigger than the preseason patch.
Yes, it is.
In terms of the impact it has on the game, 80 carry item changes, bruiser item changes, a massive amount of nerfs and buffs, just too much stuff.
Yuumi is dead.
There it is.
Augers.
Yeah.
Thank
gone.
God.
I think that the biggest change that we'll see in terms of impact is the AD carry itemization. I bet there are some pro-focused nerfs like the Yuumi and those kinds of things, and Maokai got hit in that. So you will see a change of champions, but in terms of just like raw class changes, crit being changed to 40% is when the IE turns on, and I see you pointing.
Yeah, well, I'm just a nerd. I want to stay at those nerf parts with the camera. People don't know about the legend, so look at the color coding from average, skilled, elite, and pro. The little like green, like the line next to Heimerdinger and the line next to Yuumi, that means she was nerfed for pro. But you look at Udyr, he was nerfed for elite, skilled, and average, but wasn't a pro problem. Most people don't know that. Every time I see it, I want to bring it up.
That's a fair call out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I have nothing else
actually
to add.
didn't really pay attention to that until like a few weeks ago. The other thing I did want to say is in touching Lucian, Nami, I actually don't think those changes are enough to stop seeing them in the bot lane. I still think they're both going to be not only just fine, but also still like pretty highly contested in terms of 2v2s.
Yeah, and for me, the two biggest changes, kind of like what we talked about, Demonic Embrace getting nerfed. It's like a, 0.2% nerf that we got to see on it, which is pretty significant for the class that it's in. And then specifically, the nerfs to Maokai. So they're trying their hardest to take this champion out. And I don't think it's enough, personally. I think Maokai is way too strong of a champion. It's probably going to still be prioed alongside Ashe's first pick. And the other one are bruiser changes, because there's a lot. The set goal, of course, making it so you're not tanky with those changes, while also having ability haste. So Eclipse got pretty heavy nerfs. Like that one was something that
Omnivamp.
so that's something that like the lifesteal that you're not able to get that. Omnivamp also got just nuked. So that was another one where it's like Black Cleaver got buffed, Death Stance lost ability haste, Maw lost ability haste, Gore Drinker lost. It has now some ability haste within its passive. So you're right. This is just a bigger change than preseason, so I wonder how much of a shift it's going to be in draft.
The other thing, too, is the Grievous Wounds going up to flat 40% even on component items. Again, the people who probably heal the most in combat are bruiser-type champions, some drain tanks and things like that. But this is another hit towards them, kind of, in terms of like, all right, now you can just buy this component item. You don't need to go to the full 3,000 and then like also get people below 50% HP. It's just way easier to actually apply.
Yeah, and in terms of the impact that I think it's going to have this week, we've already seen a lot of teams saying winning bot lane is the most important thing. I think now that you can build Infinity Edge or Navori Quickblade second, because the the crit percentage you need in order to turn the item on has gone to 40% from 60%, so you can build the second item. I think it's just going to be more of a party in the bot lane. So still range support, power creep, arms race, because they just need to win the lane so they can get to their Infinity Edge second and then take over the game.
And one super thing that I'm super curious about that, like piggybacking off of that, is how junglers are going to focus around it, because already we did see people taking like quote unquote risks on junglers like Elise, where it was like, okay, she does obviously fall off a lot more in late game than other junglers, but if you can just be down in bot lane every single minute, take a break, do some camps, come back, revisit that lane and keep it pushing. I wonder if we'll see more of that coming out of the jungle, or if junglers like her will be more hotly contested because items are just turning on a lot faster down there.
Yeah, and one change that'll probably be in mid lane changes. Zoe getting the magic pen that's basically just built into her Sleepy Trouble bubble. Orianna getting a lot of changes. Maybe we see some.
Jensen's happy.
There it is. Jensen's happy. He might be. He has to be happier now after the losses. So let's go straight into the conversation about 2-0 versus 0-2 reactions, basically, of what happened in week 1. So we have a lot of happy teams TSM is a happy team. Actually, we have a tweet that came in from Ashton C. Johnston here for the LCS, which is, which 2-0 team is most likely to go 0-2? And which 0-2 team?
No.
We just want chaos here. 0-2 team is most likely to go into T0.
I like how Jeff's probably pulling up the schedule, because I don't remember
the schedule is exactly what matters the most for this one, because strength of schedule is so important. I don't hate them.
Okay.
You should
right
know
here,
for 10 years. If we had any brain cells, we would know how our own set works.
Oh, yeah. You should know for 10 years that I have been a stalwart TSM supporter. But in terms of the 2-0 teams most likely to go 0-2, it has to be TSM. They play EG and 100 Thieves. That's the hardest schedule of all the 2-0 teams.
Yeah, CLG has a chance to go up against Immortals, and that's probably a win for them. So FlyQuest, did they fight anyone too tough this weekend?
I guess. So FlyQuest, yes, because they play C9 day 2.
Yes.
C9, yeah.
C9 actually also has a really hard schedule. They're
go.
COD FlyQuest first day of both games. So they're Dark Horse 0-2.
So we're hitting a lot of teams that we think are going to go 0-2, but which team is going to bounce back? I know we already have, there's one team that comes to my mind. I'm just going to go out and say it, Team Liquid. They came out 0-2. I think a lot of people even forgot about that fact because of how the expectations were for that squad. But they're going to be going up against Golden Guardians here in day 1. And just take a look at the roster that they have. I mean, offseason was probably everybody had their eyes glued to Team Liquid. They were the team that made the biggest changes. They lost Hans Sama, who's doing quite well in the LEC right now. They lost Bjergsen, and then they brought in a literal world champion in Pyosik, and they brought back Summit. So what is your expectation on Team Liquid?
For me, I think that they should be much better than 0-2. I think that weekend was disappointing, especially the TSM game. The fact that they had such a large lead and just kind of like fumbled it away. Summit getting caught out of position, flashing in to contest Dragon like 1v3 by himself. You know, like just these kinds of plays that makes them look very disjointed. I think they are a team that should take time to get better because you have 2 rookies and some like Pyosik playing in the LCS for the first time. I think they'll ramp up, but I still can't say that I wasn't disappointed.
Man, I feel like I need to make like a Team Liquid positivity rule.
Yeah.
Because I spent all of 2022 just like championing the team of like, oh man, they got so many stars on this team. Like, don't worry about it. They'll figure it out. They'll do well in playoffs. And then they just finished 3rd in spring and 4th in summer. And I agree with Mark. Like on paper, I'm like, yeah, this team should be good. And I said that before the year. But like, at a certain point, I need to stop saying this until, like, how high do they need to be on the standings before I'm allowed to say, yeah, Team Liquid will be fine? I'm not going to say it this week. I need to wait and ask me again week 4.
Yeah, and if you have a fire extinguisher around you, you can say it just in case.
Yeah.
Emily, anything about the teams here so far? If you want to touch on Team Liquid, you can, because I think a lot of people have already been talking about them in between week 1 and now.
I do want to talk about TL only because I think it was really disappointing to see the 0-2 performance from them, but the caveat is they did go up against one of the best teams that we're thinking of in FlyQuest, right? Like that is these are kind of the 2 rosters that we were looking at initially to kind of make an instant splash in LCS. And then additionally, I think they've been pretty upfront with like sticking to, this is our plan. We did super well in scrims when we were in Korea. We're sticking to this South Korean system and communication within the team. And that is a long-term project, right? So I think it stinks to go 0-2. They definitely didn't want to. They'll definitely want that second game back. But in terms of will they be okay, I think they'll be fine.
That'll be fine.
Another team that's 0-2. It's Dignitas.
There we go.
It's not going to get better fast, but I've been told they're not looking to panic. So unlike a lot of teams who spent an offseason in Korea, they were there before the new year, came back. Like this team literally had 3 days to play with Armut last week before their first stage game. They still don't have Ignar as their intended starting support. They're playing with Biofrost, but they're definitely coming into the year slowly in spring. And the goal for them, I talked to them, is to be good in summer. So like, there's gonna be a lot of panic for this team. I literally do think they're gonna have a really rough start to spring. They still don't have Ignar, they still don't have the practice. But just the messaging there is just be patient, I guess.
Especially since like Armut coming in, just out, like literally just off the plane.
Yeah.
Not much practice. Thankfully, he has more practice now. Someone who's been practiced, and you've touched on FlyQuest and how good they've looked. Prince looks like a baller right now. Like, when people are instantly putting him in as the best AD carry right now in the split, like, is there a conversation there?
Nope. It's Prince, baby. That's it. Lock it down. The end. Next topic.
Prince, Berserker.
Berserker.
There it is. And honestly, let's see what Fionn had to say here as he tweeted at the LCS. Prince is currently the strongest player outside the LPL LCK. So he's not even thinking about
strongest player.
This region. He's thinking
Tyler, what are you doing?
about the LEC as well.
He is.
Wow.
That's kind of wild.
We just gonna throw Bo out this conversation? I don't know.
I feel like Hansama's still catching strays after he's left the region. No, Hansama's doing a great job with Mickey X and LLC, but honestly, I do agree. The fact that somehow the LCS had the ability to get Prince after what was an incredible season in the LCK, I'm still questioning how that was possible.
I think you have to give a head tap to Dhokla for being the one to commit first, which then convinced Prince to be like, all right, we'll go FlyQuest.
Nice. I always love Dhokla hype. I was gonna say, I think this super interesting thing for me with Prince is last year, I felt like he was the crux of, you know how we always have player of the game arguments, right? And we talked about this on desk last week with Fudge in terms of him winning. Is it just because he played Cassante? With AD carries and with Prince specifically, it was like, oh, is it just because he's getting resources? So I wanted to ask you guys, I don't think this is the case, but in terms of that argument, like how well does someone have to perform when they're getting fed all their resources for you to not have that in the back of your mind?
It's the eye test. Like, I will say it's always the eye test. So it's like, that's why it's a tough conversation. And I think Prince, sure, you have Spica, he was performing really well. But also, people are not taking into consideration, barely even talked about the fact that he's playing with Winsome. And Winsome is great, but he's not the support that they want to land with. It's Ayla.
Yeah.
For me, this is kind of like the Danny conundrum from last year. Because Danny was a player who didn't win lane that often, but was consistently like 9-0 in a game. When Prince, for me last week, like in the Dignitas game, he was turret diving 3v3 and picking up a kill. And in the Team Liquid game, he was slightly ahead in farm, but then he himself was making proactive plays to like dive turrets and kill Yon. So it wasn't like, if the fights just happen around him and he gets the last hits, then I'm like, oh, they're giving him resources. But it felt to me like Prince was proactively finding the resources for himself.
I also feel like just because you have someone like you can feed resources to and they carry, that's not a slight. That's like, wow, that's awesome that we have this consistent win con. I never really understood the argument that's like, well, he only looks good because they give him all the resources and then he wins them games. It's like, oh, I guess it's cool if you can
Tom Brady's only good because he throws
I'm like, it's cool if you can win without needing a ton of resources. And that's why I think Fudge got Player of the Week last week, is because he did a lot of that on his own, a little bit more than Prince. But like, as a general statement, I have no problem being like, that's the guy you feed and then he carries you.
And I'm only saying this, I actually haven't seen anyone saying it about his LCS performance. It's more like, why didn't he get Player of the Week? Like, there's been an argument there, but this was something that got brought up when he was in LCK last year that I thought was really interesting. And I just wanted to ask the ideological argument.
That's very fair. And I think at some point, this guy is going to get Player of the Week. That is going to be a point.
We can't give it to him every week, so that's why we waited.
We gotta pace ourselves. As long as there's a better option, or like another one.
You cannot get 8. There's 8 weeks.
So I know we're gonna have a lot of time to talk about FlyQuest, especially later on today. I'm interested about Golden Guardians, the hopium around that. I wonder if we actually have a question on that one. Oh, actually, no, not Golden Guardians. We will have a chance to talk about them much later on. It's mostly on CLG. Because a lot of people are excited for CLG. So let's see what Tuft had to say here. It's a lot of F's in his name. I'm surprised if any of your friends can find that guy. But he's tweeted to LCS. Contractz is a top 3 jungler in the LCS and will be an MVP frontrunner in the season. He has been in monster form since summer last year and keeps looking better and better. Who wants to take that one? There's a lot of people thinking about this. I will say immediately my thought on this, just to start the conversation. He's been performing well in week 1. I think the jungle pool is way too strong right now for him to be in contention of top 3. I'm thinking Blaber, who had a great week. Even like his team fights were great. And guess what? He was actually kind of out-jungled by Closer. So that's already 2 junglers that I would have in the top 3. Do you think he punches above that, Emily? Well,
there are other junglers that you didn't mention who have been doing really well. Like, I know Spica joked about being on Maokai duty, but like he had a really strong week 1. I think for Contractz, honestly, the most interesting thing is how different he looked in his first 2 games with CLG last week than he did previously. And I know I talked to Palafox about this a little bit, but the fact that we didn't see him going on the Elise, right? And I'm diving at level 3 bot lane around our pushing bot. And of the junglers, we kind of talked about like using Elise as a springboard for like who's going to be doing this. Contractz actually came up as one of the things that we were like, one of the junglers that we were like, oh, if anyone's going to do this, he's going to be doing it. And so I thought it was really interesting to see the play style difference in Contractz.
I think MVP, as that tweet says, is troll. But I think you can, if he did have an incredible split and CLG really overperformed everyone's expectation, put him in top 3 of junglers. You're right, it is a really competitive pool with Spica being on a top team again, as opposed to TSM last year. You know, Pioshik's good. You have Santorin. Who knows? Like, there's so many people who can be top 3. But for me, that almost speaks more to the volatility of the top 3, because there's so many candidates that can break into top 3. Whoever's actually just outperforming over the course of the split deserves it. So I'm not going to go too much off historical context. Like, yeah, generally Closer's been better, or generally Blaber's been better. Like, if CLG's top 3, top 4, and Contractz is a big reason why, he's probably going to get that nod from me. Do you think he has the ability to do it? Because at least when he was on Evil Geniuses, for the short stint that he had when he was playing games instead of Svenskeren, pumping out MVPs, you could see mechanically he was stellar, and that was something that people will always say about Contractz. So do you think with the tough jungle pool that we have in the LCS that he can punch into that top 3 echelon this year?
I think could. I mean, especially this year. Absolutely, if you're giving him the whole year to have that type of performance. But it's going to just take time.
Yeah, I can see that. And so I think, which we're talking about taking time, for me, it's about the respect around CLG, which we go into the next topic, because that seems to be the biggest hot button issue with this team, as we hear from Angie Numi, as she adds the LCS, which is CLG take top 3 at the end of regular season. Give me the spicy pepper bet. So she wants a spicy pepper bet. And we're back to another top 3 conversation, but this time about the team.
Is she saying she'll do this hot pepper bet?
Also, it looks like she's a Harry fan, so...
Yeah.
Oh, true.
Well, Numi's
it is his, okay, by the way, Harry's birthday today. Wanted to put that out there, so happy birthday, Harry.
Yeah.
Hopefully he finds a dub then. But on this point, she's a big, like, active community member and, like, does the NA Men podcast and stuff like that. She should put her own money where her mouth is and do a hot pepper bet that they're top 3.
True.
I'll be on the far side if anyone wants to join me.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Jat and I will eat a hot pepper if you're right, Numi, and if you're wrong, you do it. You can guess on the analyst.
Yeah,
I don't know if this
anything
is allowed,
outside of top 3 and she eats a hot pepper.
Yeah, I think so.
Easy.
It seems like an easy win. I don't think that's what the point of this tweet was. She was trying to get one of us to make it, but I signed her up.
All right, and I also just got in my ear that there's a secret producer question, and I think it's pertaining to CLG, so let's just see what the question is. Production quiz.
Oh,
when was the last time C9, CLG, and TSM were all in the top 3 spots in the LCS standings?
2015 spring. That's probably too long ago, but that's just immediate gut reaction.
This a second ago.
Well, they obviously.
Okay, past that, before that.
The other time, obviously.
Stats. All right, I think 2015 spring sounds right.
That sounds way too long ago. There had to have been like a week, because it's just one.
I know it's probably something that happened after like a week 1
or week 2.
Oh yeah.
But I still feel like, because a lot of times we'd start with a super week that would be like 3.
Well, and
games.
CLG had a rough go of things from like 20.
If this is like they all finished 1-0 on the first day, I'm going to be real sad, because that's probably it. But I would say 2016.
Oh, you're right.
2016 summer, I'm going to say.
Because
because they were the 3 worlds teams in 2016.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
I was right, baby!
Spring!
They weren't. So, to be fair, they were the 3 worlds teams in 2016 summer.
But
I guess they were never there in the
I
standings.
didn't see what the question said, but we're going to go with... You're wrong, and I'm right.
Oh, that was the regional qualifiers, though. Wasn't that one of the C9? Like,
yeah, it would have been.
runs?
It would have been. Would have been 3 regional qualifiers where C9 makes it in.
Because they had a series of years where they were constantly like punching above their weight in regional qualifiers.
Yeah.
So for now, let's just go straight to the schedule. What we have here for today's games. Which one of these games are going to be catching your guys' interest? We've got Cloud9 versus CLG, top of the table like we just discussed. Golden Guardians versus FlyQuest, into 100 Thieves and Dignitas. And then we get Immortals Progressive versus Team Liquid, one of these teams trying to fight for their first win of the split. And Evil Geniuses versus TSM.
I know we're about to hype up game 1 for the rest of this countdown, so I actually want to talk about the last game, because so many TSM fans are upset at analysts and people for not believing in them yet, despite the fact that they're 2-0. This is a huge put up or shut up game. If they beat EG in the last game of the day, all of us look dumb for still not believing in them, because they beat one of the teams that a lot of us have at the top of our power ranking. So that's a huge game for me in terms of just like community sentiment around TSM.
It's fair, but also if they win, I can always be like, best of 1.
If you're talking about...
You're going to keep hunting it down.
I could. I don't know what I'm going to do. It depends on the game.
That's crazy. That's wild. You know what? Yes, TSM fans are going to be upset the fact that we didn't have faith in them. CLG fans are going to be upset that we didn't have faith in them. And I want to hear from Palafox on just talking about the team chemistry and what got them that 2-0 win last week.
best way to put it is like when you keep a roster, usually there's like a honeymoon phase, right? Where like, you know, you're meeting everybody, you're like finding out their tendencies, nobody's frustrated. All right, there was no honeymoon phase for us. It was just like, we're it, we need to get better.
Amazing.
Sorry. And we picked up right where we left off. Our first week of scrims was pretty rough. Second week was like, all right, we need to be more disciplined. And I think we showed that today, actually.
There we go. I mean, the idea of them just instantly picking up where they left off, kind of scrapping.
But also, yeah, I was going to say, picking up where we left off is we didn't have a honeymoon phase.
Picking up with all the arguments. I still got the same beef from summer, you know? Picking up exactly where we left off.
I will say, like, you're so much more agreeable in the honeymoon phase, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes that doesn't necessarily lead to improvement. Like, you can make a lot of change quickly, but you don't necessarily know if it's going to be good change. But with CLG, like, they've had the arguments so many times in the past that they're willing to stand their ground and they know what type of ground they're willing to defend.
Yes, I mean, that's true. And that's why, going to that point, honeymoon phase is great because you always have faith that it can get better. You always feel like, okay, you know, we make mistakes now, but it's not too bad. I like the fact that you take risks. But then if you keep taking risks and failing, then yeah, there's an issue with that. And this is a team that takes risks. They took risks last split. You see Contractz in front of you. You see the duo and their solo laners and how they a lot of the times gravitated towards Yone and Assassin mids. And then a lot of times it was them honing in on what worked best for them, Emily.
Yeah, and I also think like when you do have a roster that does end up staying together, there is one really good thing that can happen if you can get to the point where you know exactly how people accept information, like take it in, receive information, and when you do fight, you then know how to dispel what is going on.
And I do want to just highlight how rare it is that teams actually do keep all 5 players the same over the course from one summer split to the next year's spring
whole
split.
offseason.
The whole offseason. That's only happened 4 other times in LCS history. And those teams all finished top 3 in that spring split. But the important thing to note is that all those other teams were either playing in finals, won a championship, or qualified for Worlds in that summer split. And so this CLG squad finished 5th, I believe it was, in the regular season, and then you know, ended up losing out in playoffs, not making Worlds. And so they are a bit of an exception to the rule where they're not top 3 at the end of the previous split and hoping that they can make it this time.
The thing that's also super interesting to me is how it happened more frequently in the very beginning of the LCS. And then there's this massive gap between 2016 and 2021 where everyone's just flipping their rosters over.
Chat, why the hell do you have a Jenga puzzle?
Yeah, I have an analogy. We've been thinking
I'm
about
helping you
this.
out,
We're
right? You
thinking
need
about
hands?
this. So come over
what is
here.
happening
Okay.
here?
Come over
Let's go.
I don't know what we're doing.
You
but-
can think, Mark, you should come up too. I need to find my place.
When the hell did
Okay.
you build this?
The purpose of making a team is to go as far as possible. If the team is a Jenga tower, you're trying to stack it as high as you can. Now, when you have a whole year, you can spend a long time building up your Jenga tower, but you wonder, like, how high can this tower really get? But when you make roster changes, you start the Jenga tower over, and you can, in theory, build it up faster. So Mark claims to be very good at Jenga.
Well, I didn't know what we were doing when I said this.
So
These are bigger blocks. These are technically different.
And like the number of blocks that you have in your Jenga tower is analogous to the talent of the players on your team. So a lot of people considered that CLG team overperformed expectations, which is why
Mark,
you're thinking like, hey, it's kind of hard for them to get better, but they did start the season pretty good. So like, Mark is struggling. This is the
I'm trying to find
post-honeymoon phase.
a loose brick.
I mean,
To like tap it.
figure it out, man. We
You
don't
saw
have
how
much
easily
time.
I did see.
But don't, Mark, no
All right,
pressure.
just gotta-
Don't ruin the
just gotta
segment.
wiggle one
Yeah.
out.
Just improve CLG, please. Come on.
Ooh, here's a good.
There we
thing.
go.
All right.
But that's precarious.
This is their mid game
okay.
around.
They're trying to
Drake's
improve.
setup. They got a little bit better at Drake.
But I gotta say, like, for Dignitas at least, it's like, oh yeah, you know, Ignar showed up. Boom, another one. Right? I just grabbed something off the table. Like,
What, is this a race now? Do I gotta beat you?
They're gonna be improving pretty quickly.
Oh, she scared me.
That was a pen. Emily's tried to sabotage
That wasn't me,
it.
it was
That was
Raph.
bad.
That's a rogue
That was
fan
awful.
making a
Oh my
Reddit
God,
hate
just
thread.
because I
Here's a
throw
good one.
pens.
It was all empty.
Yeah. And like Dignitas
my
can
God.
improve
Hey, there's some
pretty
split
quickly.
pushing for Dhokla. Just got a little bit better.
Yeah,
Oh.
it did.
This CLG tower
This is
is
pretty
really
quick.
making me nervous.
I'm rocking a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, Mark. Just.
Wait, how good are you at Jenga?
Oh.
Mark,
I told you I'm
Mark
decent.
has said he's very
He
good
actually
at
is
Jenga.
pretty good.
Well, it's just like you just now.
Yeah. I'm gonna. And I'm sorry, CLG, like, this is why I put C9 higher in my power rankings.
All right, base ones
I feel like
I'm beating C9 though. Look, I'm better. I'm taller. I'm taller by one.
Snitching on me.
Dude.
Okay, I think this analogy has probably worn off, but it's still fun.
You can't even
not work.
I should coach CLG. If I'm learning anything right now, it's.
Oh, give me another one.
Try again.
All right, late game. Let me get one more for late game in here.
Okay.
Careful. Oh! Raz predicts C9.
All right, there we go. Get back here. Get back here. Get back here.
That was. Why do we have to knock it over? CLG spent like a year building that roster.
Yeah, what was that? Like that nuking in summer's room?
Raz does not believe in CLG.
That was sturdier than I thought it was, but let's go straight to the predictions.
Oh, Mark!
This is why I predicted CLG. I had faith in my own Jenga building and them as a team. They didn't let me down last week when I predicted them over EG. They are upset machines. They're going to do it again.
Fair.
That is not fair. You're just trying to make up for the fact that you put them fairly damn low in your preseason predictions.
I mean, both C9 fans and CLG fans think I hate them, so there's no pandering going on here.
Okay. All right. Not like what you did last week trying to pander to Whipple. You're not pandering.
No, absolutely not. No.
You're not?
No. I think that they could do it. I really do.
All right. But for the rest of these, there's not too much of a change. Everyone has these like identical outside of that.
Yeah.
No one went for the TSM flip.
I almost YOLO'd and just reversed my prediction on every game. And this is to speak to how variant early season is.
Yeah.
Like, it was Friday of last week where we were looking at the schedule and we said, yeah, all these games are pretty straightforward. And then like 3 of them went to the team that we thought was going to be an underdog.
Yeah.
So our confidence level on trying to rank teams that we've literally seen twice on stage is pretty low. So you really just do have to play the games and see what happens.
Do you think, which game on there? Obviously, you made your prediction.
Call your upset then.
But like, which upset would you say is going to happen?
You and Emily. Well, I called mine already. I said
EG TSM, because I think I myself and everyone sleeps on Boogie a lot. I think that dude's incredibly good.
Ooh. You might. Look, I'm going to throw in Dignitas.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, this is the most outdated meme of all time of them being the banana peel. They're a completely different squad right now. But just the idea of Dignitas finally having some scrim time with Armut, like at least there's some time there and some level of preparation. And you have to have at least some faith that Santorin and Jensen can make it work and make the game competitive. So I'm going to put that out there. Obviously, I already made my prediction. I don't believe that that's going to be the case. But interested in what you guys think about it at home. So I want you guys to be spamming which game you think is going to be the upset.
Yeah.
But until that point, for now, that's us. That's it for us, here at the waiting room. Going to head over to the show. Enjoy.
The LCS 2023 season starts right now. Fudge going for the solo kill. He flashes forward, but Tenacity tries to spin, but Fudge gets the outplay. CLG killed everybody. It's a triple over to Big Dokes. Maple with the shuffle, TSM with the scuffle.
This is Cloud9, CLG, and TSM at the top of the LCS. Golden.
Oh no. It connects. And a cross-map arrow's just gonna seal his fate. Oh, good shot, man. We have seen some sick ass arrows. Oh, hold on. We got Prince going in. Prince!
Who's not excited about this guy?
FlyQuest striving to become the main character for their 2023 season.
gentlemen, welcome to the LCS. It is the start of week number 2. It is day number 1. And we are going to start things off nice and spicy here today. I am CaptainFlowers, that is Azael, and this is C9 versus CLG.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun one. Both teams coming into this undefeated. CLG, I think, surprising a lot of people last week, something that they were able to do in Summer Split last year as well.
Yes,
so
sir.
It'd be pretty huge if they could take down Cloud9, because Cloud9 has been looking really good. And Fudge in particular getting so much credit, winning Player of the Week, back-to-back K'Sante games, had masterful performances.
I do expect people to be banning the champion against him more. Speaking of bans, speaking of picks, we're into the draft, and it is 13.1B. We were only playing that first week of LCS on 13.1's initial launch. Now we've got some of those hot fixes, including the death of Yuumi. Normally I would ask for an F in the chat, but nobody's going to miss the cat, so let's just go ahead and get into what will hopefully be a Yuumi-free experience for months and even years to come.
I mean, if someone picks Yuumi, I think they're taking the L. Yuumi looks super dead in the patch. It's also the AD carry changes with IE. You can get second item IE. That's pretty big. Demonic Embrace got nerfed. There was mana changes on ADs. There's been fighter item changes. There was nerfs to Maokai. There's nerfs to Kassadin. There's nerfs to Heimerdinger. There's so many changes.
Yeah.
That is going to be a lot about, what did you actually figure out here? Caitlyn first pick, atypical from last week, definitely. Maokai was getting grabbed up so early, so often. We do see that K'Sante is still available as well.
And I feel like Caitlyn could be a big winner from these Infinity Edge changes that you're talking about. This is a champion who is known for a strong early and a strong late with a power trough in the middle. If you get to have your big signature item as item number 2, you can really fill in that trough.
Absolutely. And one of the things we haven't touched on yet is that Lucian Nami got a lot of nerfs, right? They got individual nerfs on both of these two champions. So a lot of people, I think, are maybe feeling like, hey, you can get away with some picks that you couldn't get away with last time because Lucian Nami isn't there necessarily to punish you. Yuumi is gone as well. K'Sante going to be taken away here from Fudge. I feel like that was a smart grab for Dhokla, as Fudge was just running rampant on this pick last week. But it does mean that on red side, you're blinding your top laner here. And we get Kalista, so theoretically this could actually be Kalista support or AD. That is a two-way flex.
Right.
We've seen Keria actually play both of these as support. If I had to guess, I'm expecting it to be Caitlyn support now for Zven and Kalista as the AD. Could be either way. And it's going to be really interesting to see how Zven can perform, because he was an AD for almost his entire career, right? He just swapped over to support last year. This guy has reached some incredibly high highs as an AD. They're also going to be able to grab, as I said, counterpick on blue side for top lane, which is really atypical in pro play. But because you needed to take away K'Sante from Fudge, well, he gets the counterpick in now. And he's going to bring out that Fiora that we saw Revenge get a really big advantage against Solo with.
Right.
So we know this is a really strong matchup. We know that he can get the edge there. And it'll be interesting to see if he can execute on that.
And I always love to see players play both sides of a matchup, right? We got to see Fudge get MVP performances on K'Sante back-to-back games in week 1. Now I'm ready to see how Fudge can deal with the champion himself. Wukong's going to be your final lock-in for the first half of the draft for CLG. So some roles are lined up, others are not. Both sides have what we assume is the support. Both sides have their top laner, but then a jungler and an AD carry means bans aren't exactly going to be the same, despite the fact that we did see some Maokai nerfs, despite the fact that we saw some Demonic Embrace nerfs. They're still looking at this as a powerful jungler, so CLG is going to take it off the table, keep it away from Blaber.
Absolutely, and I just think when you look at C9's comp, they need some sort of frontline, they need some sort of engage, unless they're going to hard commit to playing split push, right? Like, those are your two options. I'm expecting that they're going to want to draft some sort of engage, so banning away the Maokai just makes a lot of sense, right? It fits into that wheelhouse, gives you a little bit of frontline, because Caitlyn and Kalista are not your engage. I mean, you can throw the Caitlyn in there.
Cupcake's a front line. You just throw them on the ground. Make a line in the front.
They are a front line. Maybe not a good one, but they are in there. Udyr being taken away as well. Another really strong jungler on this patch. Kassadin's still getting banned out, despite some of the nerfs that have come through. Kassadin is incredibly strong, especially as a counter pick. So, banning it out on blue side, if you're feeling like, okay, they're gonna save that their mid laner pick for last. Like, almost guaranteed they'll pick AD on 4 and then pick mid lane on 5, unless they want to do something really kind of crazy. This way we can see C9 blind and AP mid, which they need, and not necessarily get punished by that.
I mean, Kassadin is a unique champion in that if he gets a draft that doesn't feel like it just completely shuts him down, he warps the entire game around himself.
And where's the CC? Cloud9 has no CC, right? So they do need to ban that out. Again, because we are expecting an AP mid since they've drafted all physical so far for the first 3 for Cloud9, that becomes even more important. So it is the return of the CLG bot lane that we saw quite a bit at the beginning of last split when Enchanters came in there. Seraphine Karma, so really powerful here to actually group this up with some melee characters like the Wukong, like the Cassante. You can ult through them, you're buffing them up, you're speeding them up, has really, really strong scaling as well. It's kind of less consistent damage, but when you can get in the later stages to multiple rounds of those shields, of those spells, it can become impossible to push through. So Cloud9 is hard committing to what I consider very early mid game here with Ahri Vi. So really great dive, really get engaged, but you're going to be having to dive through that potential Seraphine ult through. I think Swain would be a brilliant last pick here because that's really all Cloud9's comp can do is kind of run at you.
And Swain is so good traditionally in these Seraphine Death Ball compositions as well. He loves the shielding, the healing, the power to just run in there and create this massive zone of threat and control that if your divers aren't insta-killing somebody, they're in no man's land all of a sudden.
Yep, but instead they are going to go towards Orianna. So, you know, a lot more kind of traditional team fight mage here. They are quite AP heavy, I would say, on the CLG side as far as their damage profile. Obviously, they have Wukong. Obviously, they have Cassante in there as well. But this is going to be no marksman, and it's going to be a pretty tough composition to really kind of punch through here. You know, for C9, they are going to be trying to look to dive in deep, you know, take out those enchanters. Generally, when they draft these kind of like triple shielding ball comps, you have to kill someone off really, really fast, but it's very difficult to do because no matter who you actually jump on, if you go for Palafox or if you go for Luger, Poome and Palafox can shield him up. They can kind of peel for him, and you're trying to get through Wukong ult through that Orianna ult as well, which is going to be really, really difficult. Cloud9, I feel like they have to have a good laning phase here. With Caitlyn, it is going to be Caitlyn AD, and it is going to be Kalista support here playing Ignite. So you want to see what they can get done in that 2v2, but if Caitlyn can win that lane in bot, start taking turret plates, get an advantage up in top lane, so you can be moving around the map, you know, exploiting that 1v1 that Fudge has on this Fiora, and just pressuring towers really, really heavily with this Caitlyn in the early stages, then I can see them building up enough of a lead that they could take this game. But if this game goes slow and it goes stable and you're just walking straight into 5v5s, it's going to be nearly impossible, it feels like, for Cloud9 to outfight what CLG has drafted.
And I like the fact that you bring that up because in week number 1, we saw a lot of games get outscaled, right?
Yep.
We saw some throws, we saw some people really dig in and make that defense happen, even with early game deficits, to get to the point where you outscale and find victory that way. But it was Cloud9 and FlyQuest that I think were the two standout teams for a lot of people in week number 1. So if there is a squad that I'm trusting you to say, okay, you put a timer on yourself, let's see you execute, Cloud9 would be one of those.
Absolutely, and they had some really strong laning performances as well, so definitely looking towards that. Will be pressure on them. You know, we saw EG, one of our top teams from last year, obviously, you know, fall short in what was a very early game draft where they went towards Elise. They were up nearly 10K, and they still lost that, so we've seen it happen quite a lot already.
And I like the fact that you bring up EG because it was Vulcan when he was up here on the desk for a TriCast that was talking about he likes to play the game from the perspective of the early game champion, the people who have the pressure on them to make the plays, because he says it's a lot more fun than sitting under your turret and just praying for 20 minutes to come along so you can play a game of League of Legends.
Yeah.
So Cloud9 will have themselves control over that steering wheel here in the early game. I got eyes on Blaber, on the Vi. We know how powerful this champion is to get things rolling nice and early.
That deep ward that they got through that bot lane invade, maybe they can get a little bit of cheesy damage here out of the start. It is a Q start for Caitlyn, so there's a potential of actually looking for something. And this could be a potential check here on the red buff. Fudge just queued over the wall. He can actually push Contractz off this. Contractz, I think, is going to have to leave this buff. This is actually so annoying. He gets both vitals.
Wow. Yeah,
Contractz has to flash or he's dead.
He's messing him up, man. Yeah, Contractz, he loses his buff. He loses his flash. He's so delayed. This is a terrible start in the jungle.
And you know why this wasn't even risky? Some people are going to say, that's cheesy, that's so risky. Look where they're showing. You know, we see the mid laner here, we see the top laner here, right? Like, everyone is showing on the map, so there was not really any risk. All the other players were accounted for. Right? So they have that ward over. They know where Wukong's going to be starting. He just goes in on this solo invade. It's probably going to cost him, you know, I didn't get to see exactly how many melees he lost, but my guess is he lost 2 to 3 melees worth of experience. So he is going to be down in XP. He's going to be down slightly in gold, but the advantage that Vi gets is so much more than what he has lost.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the minimap right now. Wukong is just starting his first camp here at 220, right? He had to fully base. It wasn't just that he flashed over the wall. He's starting a leashless red. By the time the full clear on the bot side is basically done for Blaber.
Essentially, Fudge traded 2 melee minions worth of EXP to DC his opponent for 1 minute.
Yeah.
That's a trade I think almost anybody would take.
And no flash. Wukong without flash is not really an early ganking threat, but look at Zven, he's getting aggressive.
Oh, Luger's at about 150 HP. The heal has to come out there just to make sure he's not too terribly low as C9's aggro early on here.
And I think just based on the Ignite cooldown, you know, the fact that that's actually halfway up, so that deep ward that I talked, I think that was actually key there. My guess is that it was a level 1 Ignite play with the Hail of Blades to just get an early chunk, just based on the timings of that. Blaber now, you know, cutting the map in half here, wants to play towards his bot side. He's saying, we know you're starting so late on top side. I'm going to come straight down here, steal your camps away, and he can threaten a potential dive here. He's going to wrap around them. They're going to have the push here. Remember, no heal, and there's no exhaust. Can he actually make this happen? Let's see if they can do it.
Ball breakers charge. Luger tries to get away, but it doesn't look like he's going to get there, my friends. First blood back up into Berserker.
They can redive.
Poome is at 250. They're going to force the flash out of there. Blaber with a follow. Zven with a follow. A little bit more damage is what they need, and they're going to find it. Blaber gets the kill, but now they got to try to escape. Sven's got no HP. Blaber's going to execute to the turret. That didn't count. That's not what he wanted to do. Okay, let's see if they can get the second one. Sven's still trying to get out of there. Luger's gonna walk on up. Sayonara, buddy. It ends up being 2 for 2 as the executes fail, but it's C9 pushing the pace.
Yep, it is that 2 for 2, but no assist gold given over, so that was still good to actually do that. And we have to remember, that's a TP from K'Sante down to bot lane, so Palafox actually has to spend his TP top lane to cover that, because K'Sante used his towards bot, and there's gonna be minions that were missed in mid lane as a result. So all told, I still think it's very C9 favored here. Really nice early game plan. They come down. This is just a poor flash from Luger.
Yeah.
He flashes in line with Blaber. What he's trying to do is flash over the back of that Vi. But the hitbox, if you're traveling straight towards him, it's really, really tough on the timing. So you need to flash more side to side there. You know, fails the flash a little bit, gets taken down, and then they're able to chase down and get a kill here. Yes, Blaber goes and dies to the turret, but this one was just karma. So you're giving no assist gold over and just that kill to that karma instead of the K'Sante. This one, unfortunately, will go to Seraphine, so you don't love that. But overall, they deny farm in bot. It's 36 CS to 19 in bot lane.
Yeah.
And you can see, you know, still actually, I'm very impressed that CLG's soul lanes are ahead after all that. They're doing very well in the farm department. So credit to them. Palafox was able to pick up that pushing top wave. But even with Fudge getting a free wave reset, he is just about even. We do have to remember he gave up Ryo on that first wave to actually get this whole jungle thing rolling. So there is some kind of fallout off of that, but I really like the early aggressive C9 plan. If you're gonna draft early, you've got to be able to make these types of plays.
And they're up 900 gold thanks to it, despite those kills being even. Of course, most of that gold is exactly what you were talking about with Caitlyn versus Seraphine, that massive CS canyon between the two of them. And with C9 wanting to push the pace of this game, I like the fact that they have the Caitlyn on the marksman role instead of putting her on support, because we know the traditional Caitlyn plan: bust your lane open, take the turret, and then just start the Tour de Rift. Walk mid, do the same thing. Walk top, do the same thing. Cupcakes down around every neutral objective. And that's kind of what I'm expecting out of them, as you do have Blaber and Diplex taking over this bottom side river. They're going to go ahead and take this first Drake, no problem. It's not like they even need to back Blaber up. Diplex rotated down just in case, but they see that nobody's coming, and C9 are going to grab the first neutral objective in this game.
And Contractz actually spending a lot of time there. Got to highlight the levels between these two junglers. Contractz level 3, Blaber level 5. Contractz was expecting a potential another dive on that pushing wave. He knows that his bot lane is very far behind, so he's saying, all right, if they get dove again, it's actually GG. I gotta be here, you know, maybe see if I can pull off a gank if they go over aggressive, or counter dive if Blaber is gonna look for a wraparound, but it doesn't happen, so he just wastes even more time there. Blaber being very efficient with his farming. Not only has he taken that dragon, he's up 4 or 5 camps.
I mean, it always feels bad to spend a lot of time looking for a gank that doesn't pay off as a jungler, but when you're already this far behind, it actually just feels like you're shoveling the dirt on top of your own coffin, because there's just no way you're going to contest this man at any point if you're 2 levels behind and still struggling to catch up. So it's going to be a tough game for Contractz. He's really going to need to find some sort of a good opportunity here to get himself back in.
Yeah, the one bright side I will say is that, you know, you can kind of sit back and say, we're scaling, you know, just minimize loss. A 1K gold lead, that's a pretty big deal at 7 minutes. If it's a 1K gold lead in 7 more minutes, who cares? Yeah, right? It's not that big of a deal. So we'll see what they can do if they can continue just cycling his camps, look to try to avoid Blaber, just try to protect his lanes from dives. I think that's really his job. Whereas on the other side, Blaber just hit 6. So we want to see a very quick gank with this. If he can be effective, if he can get out on the map and get another kill here for his team immediately with this ultimate, it's going to spell good things for Cloud9.
And one thing I want to go ahead and mention as we're seeing what might turn into a fight here real quick. Let's see how far Blaber wants to take this. Just goes in, immediate quick trade. But the inventory of Dhokla, you can see the Thornmail there, or Bramblevest, excuse me, which isn't normally a big thing to comment on, but 13.1b did change all of the Grievous Wounds items. It is no longer 25% on the baby ones, evolving into 50% conditionals on the huge ones. It's just 40% across the board. Yep. So that means that this is going to be much more effective in terms of being that, sorry Fiora, you don't get to do your laning pattern anymore like it used to be. I expect anytime you see Fiora, Bramblevest is always going to be the play now more than ever.
It even got buffed individually. They were trying to make some of the items less efficient, but more about healing, right? By taking some stats off them. Bramblevest actually got buffed, plus got the healing buff. So it's more damage return than it used to have. It's 6 damage return every time they hit you, plus the 40%. So, significantly stronger item here. And, early armor is going to be very, very effective against this team. In general, Ahri is not going to be able to focus the Cassante, and that's the only person you're really going to worry about, right? Like, if Ahri is focusing the Cassante, you're going to be winning the fight very likely here anyway. So, just the Mythic that he's going to be going for will have enough MR and enough HP to kind of deal with that. And then you're just stacking armor. Like, I would love to see, even things like Frozen Heart this game, I think, can be incredibly effective against Fiora, Caitlyn, as well as that Kalista. So we'll see if he just wants to fully stack it.
I mean, a lot of Cassantes love starting off with the Iceborne Gauntlet. You go that into a Sunfire Cape, you're full build against this composition, right? You're having a great time. So Dhokla just continuing to farm up here, Fudge and him neck and neck here in terms of that CS count. As bottom lane, Luger and Poome, they got level 6 on the Seraphine. That's the one that really matters. The Encore can really, really determine the flow of a fight.
And Wukong is here. Wukong is hiding in this brush, or at least was right in there, and is 6. So they could look for this. If they actually lock them up, there's no cleanse on either player. The CC could be 100-0.
There it is. Contractz flashes. They look for Zven. The Encore hits nothing, but Berserker still might be dead. No, he's not. Zven has the save. Fate's Call brings the AD carry right on back. And this is sort of like with Kalista as support, it's almost like a Tom Kench support, just able to save that AD carry whenever you need it.
And that's why, they're gonna go for the counter gank now!
Blaber's ready to show him how it's done, but he won't find the kill. Luger survives with 100 HP. Everybody's body blocking. Protect the president. Don't let Berserker fire off the ace in the hole. All right. We're done. Everybody walks away.
Yeah, and that's why, even though it looked maybe a little bit silly, that is why they're going for Zven and not Berserker. Berserker was farther forward in the lane, but if you go into Berserker, it's just that Fate's Call comes through immediately and everything is wasted. So at the end of the day, again, it's Cloud9 going positive in these trades because it was just the support flash for Wukong flash ult and Luger's ult. Then in comes Blaber. Yeah, he spends his ult, but he gets flash and heal off of Luger. So, they're getting a lot more cooldowns here off that CLG side. And we'll see if they can really kind of make good on that. The second dragon going to be up in 30. I want to see Blaber continue to stack these. They have full bot lane prio, take dragons on spawn, move towards a potential Soul Wing condition so that you can force CLG to come to you and fight before they're ready to do so.
All right, so that sounds good for a Cloud9 win condition. Now, if you're faithful that CLG can scale and execute here, what do you think is kind of the threshold that they got to keep this game within range of? Hold on. Might have an opportunity here for C9 to get a counterattack on Dhokla. Nice flash away from Big Dokes to escape the CC from Diplex's Charm. That's going to ward away this dive. But you mentioned, back at 7 minutes, hey, 1K at 7 minutes feels bad. 1K at 14 minutes feels fine. What kind of a lead does C9 need to have to run away with this? And essentially, what does CLG have to stop?
I mean, I think that C9 is really looking to just push towards 3 quick dragons and then force on Soul, and that's going to be kind of like the pivot point of this game, right? Okay. So if CLG can actually take away a dragon or slow that down in some way to give themselves the extra 5-10 minutes to scale, I think they're going to be good. Because if CLG can get to 2 items before C9 is on 3, or 3 items before they're on 4, I feel like that's when their composition is really going to start to take over.
Okay, so pretty much staying close enough to be in striking distance of completed item total.
Yep, that's what I'm really looking at, right? And I think if CLG can take 1 dragon away, that buys them enough time to do that, and that's why they're looking for this. But C9 is here, so this is a pivotal fight. Diplex is moving down from mid lane. Cassante is already moving. Fudge has no TP, so this actually may just be CLG's dragon, which I think is actually quite bad for C9.
Okay, CLG forcing C9 away from it. Diplex trying to come around now, but Dhokla's already waiting in that pixel brush. Drake's got about 1,600 left. We could get a smite fight out of it, but no, Blaber's just gonna walk away, and CLG stops the dragon stack.
So now Fudge has basically got to try to get a full tower because there is no TP on either Dhokla or Palafox, so no one can go top. So this is the trade-off. You're going to get more gold for that dragon, but it puts a lot of the onus on Fudge to be able to make something happen in that 1v1. It's no longer okay for him to just kind of sit back and farm it out. Right. He's going to have to be able to push that advantage, take towers, draw pressure on the map, because they gave up that quick soul as a win condition, and it's going to be one that will be really good for their comp here, as we can see. Hextech Soul, nothing to scoff at with double marksman in that bot lane. It's going to feel really, really nice.
And you can see C9 also chose to drop the Rift Herald in bottom lane again, going back to that traditional Caitlyn calculus of how to play the game. You got to knock down bot lane turret first, then rotate her around everywhere else. There's 2 plates left on bottom lane, 2 plates left on top, but remember that second plate on top lane is mostly also killed by Fudge and the damage he was able to do with this Fiora. He has his Divine Sunderer completed because he didn't have to stop off for the completed boot, and for the Bramble Vest like his opponent, he's going to enjoy that power spike for a little while now. But like you said, it can't just be, hey, I'm beating him by some farm. We need to see some moves coming out of this Fiora. We need to see that side lane pressure.
Absolutely. You know, they either have to be able to find a way to dive Dhokla or at least chunk him low enough that he has to leave the tower and then you take the tower. It's got to be these types of plays because I do think, you know, with CLG having snuck away a dragon here, you know, maybe C9 was okay to trade for gold, or maybe they weren't expecting Dhokla to actually make that move without having TP himself. But I think it's a smart play when you're playing a tank to sacrifice your own individual lead to secure the team advantage, right? And that's exactly what Dhokla did in this situation. So I think CLG is well and truly within striking distance, as long as they don't give up, you know, one of those massive team fight aces or something that's really going to blow the game open. This gold lead, I think, is still totally fine for them with their comp.
Okay. 2.3k as turret plates fall. Drakes are even, still only the 2 kills that were traded during the bottom lane dive that Cloud9 forced back at level 3. It's Berserker and Blaber topping the table in terms of total gold count, with Palafox being the only CLG player in the top 4 in terms of those big earners. It is Luger with his mythic item completed. He's the only one with a fully completed item on the side of CLG. Meanwhile, everybody on C9 except for Zven has theirs done. And I think this is kind of what you were talking about earlier, is those completion comparison points. As long as you do not have an item and they do, CLG is not looking to fight.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they just have to sit back and farm it out. You know, it may not be the style that everyone likes to play, but it is a very, very powerful style, and it's something that puts a lot of pressure on your opponents. You know, they are the ones who can make the aggressive moves, but they're also the ones that have to, or they're just going to be straight up losing as that clock is ticking away. And you can see now, Luger starting to really get the pressure down here. They're going to drop second Herald top, so they're going to look for a crash on the tier 2. They take down that tier 1. Wukong's still sitting bot, so they want to at least get the crash, if not threaten a dive. It's possible that they could look for it, but would be risky. Blaber has to start it. He's going.
They're just going in. Dhokla tries to get away. He flashes away from the Vi ulti, but it follows you wherever you may go. But he goes right back to help from his team. They've got the heal from Fiora, and now CLG may be able to find their counterattack. A 1-for-1, but Fudge is still in danger. Contractz gets a little bit more of a boost here from the Orianna. Speed enough to catch up, but it's reposted. Most of the damage is gone. Diplex over the wall. The outplay. It's Fudge again and again and again and again and again. He makes it happen for C9.
Oh my God, it's the year of Fudge. He's going off in the top lane. Him and Blaber diving deep. And insult to injury, they almost got the inhibitor turret from that because Shelly was still alive. Not only did they get the tier 2, not only did they get the outplay at low health and take down the extra man, they get the charge on the tier 3. That is dangerously close to Fudge just walking up, killing the tower in your face, and starting to threaten inhibitor now. And that is exactly what Cloud9 needed. And that puts the game squarely in their favor.
Yeah, 1 minute ago you were telling me, hey, 2,500 gold ain't too bad as long as nothing extreme happens. And now not even 60 seconds afterwards, we got ourselves a lot bigger of a problem. Let's take a look again at how C9 executed the dive.
And C9 know Wukong was bot side, so they say, all right, we're going to go for this dive. You know, just straight in. Dhokla not paying the respect to know that they can actually look for this. He flashes it out late. He uses the ult to buy some space because Palafox was coming down to him. But this Fiora ultimate with the healing buys a little bit of time. Then Diplex comes in to try to peel. Diplex knows he has no cooldown, so he's just kind of kiting it back along the wall. And then watch this parry from Fudge. Beautiful stuff. Perfectly timed parry, procs the vital, gets the grass peel. Diplex comes over the wall, gets the ulti reset. Charm does land onto Palafox. Line him up, knock him down. Cloud9 looking so good. And now back to Dragon here. They want to fight, but now we have Cloud9 members. Blaber's on 2 full completed items here at 17 minutes. That is nuts.
CLG is going to want that chase back badly because this game is all of a sudden very, very scary. C9 onto the third Drake of the game. They've got everybody down here this time. If CLG wants a piece of this, it's going to have to be 5 on 5 in open ground. Contractz goes in. They're looking to make this fight their own, but can they get the damage? Zven is down to 100 HP. He gets himself away, and Contractz dies to Blaber. Dhokla can't find a way to intervene, and it's a double kill of a C9 jungler. Dhokla wants to escape, but the cupcakes are ready to catch him. He'll manage to hobble out, but it's 2 kills for nothing, and CLG struggle to fight back.
Yeah, they can't quite knock down Zven. It was a decent initial engage there, getting the CC on his Zven and Berserker, but Zven has the ultimate to try to keep his AD safe. And when you're ignoring the Vi and this Fiora, who are so strong at this point, they are going to be punishing you. If you're not getting those kills instantaneously, you're trying to fight through them. This gold lead on that top side of the map for Cloud9 is massive, and we are now 6.5K, 2 dragons to their name. Cloud9 really extending this advantage. Of course, it is not over just yet. We can watch this replay one more time. It's about the engage on this section up here. The TP's coming in from the bot side, so Diplex tries to time the charm, mistimes it unfortunately, but in goes Contractz there, gets the knockup. The ulti comes through, but credit to Zven. He gets the Kalista ultimate out before he gets charmed up. So he pulls Berserker out of the damage there. Yes, he gets very low. Yes, he has to spend his flash, but Berserker does not. And Berserker comes out of that at very, very high health. So critical timing there from Zven on the Kalista here, showing off his skills on this pick. And with the early Umbral Glaive, you're nothing to scoff at, right? Like, you're on one quick completed item here with a Halo Blades Kalista. Your damage is relevant in these fights.
I mean, he's got plenty of money, especially compared to a lot of the players on CLG, who are, as a team, nearly 7,000 gold behind. Honestly, that one Kim Drake they got earlier, they're probably pretty happy they got that, because if you were staring down the barrel of a sole point C9 that's 7,000 gold ahead, I would say it's already all over. Dhokla and Contractz try to collapse on Fudge, but the blast cone is there to get him away to safety. Contractz still trying to see if he can stop him here. Sweeps the tri-brush, doesn't see him, so Fudge will just make a cheeky exit.
Yep, yeah, and he doesn't have vision on a number of the members from the other side, so if you overchase there and all of a sudden Diplex or Blaber or whoever is waiting for you, could look pretty rough. Just continue to clear out vision, taking down another Scuttle here. Cloud9 moving the plan forward, making it look really, really good. CLG have got to try to look for plays like this, though, where they overload one side of the map to try to punish someone who is pushing heavily on that side. Blaber threatening here, charging up that Q, looking like he might go in, and they're going to go in now.
There's what they were looking for. They pop Zven, which means Berserker's vulnerable if they can follow up with anything else. But Fudge is ready to respond, a killing spree to take out Contractz. 1-for-1 trade, support for jungle.
Yeah, support for jungle and the flash, as well as some critical ultimates are used. Plus, they do chunk down the Karma. So they're going to continue trying to push here and try to knock down this last outer turret. They want to keep that pressure rolling. Will they feel a little bit nervous to do so? Okay, they're instead going to decide to just reset. Fudge is pushing down on bot side, so they want to reset, get their tempo up, not overstay on the map here, and give CLG too much of a window to kind of clear things out.
Fudge does have that second fully completed item in the Ravenous Hydra. You can see the scoreboard updating. Shadow Flame just completed there for Diplex on the Ahri as well. Compare that to their opponents. Thank you, Mr. Isaac. And man, it just does not look the same. A bunch of bits and parts sitting in the inventory of CLG. Oh, here we go. They're just immediately going to go in, follow it up with the damage. They don't even need the charm to connect. Luger is out of there, and Blaber's flash engaged seals the deal. Seraphine's, the biggest team fight tool they have, and with her down, I don't think C9's afraid of a Baron fight.
And you have 2 ADCs and a Kalista to rend and help you actually secure this. So as long as they time it well, it's not a 50-50, right? It is very heavily weighted towards Cloud9 here. Fudge is going to zone on the side. They are TPing Orianna up towards top lane, but in goes Fudge. He wants this.
Poome's trying to get out, but no! Diplex grabs the kill, and C9 managing to fight off CLG in this 2 versus 3 in their jungle. Contractz still trying to deal with Fudge, but the damage from Fiora is just way too much. Dhokla goes all out and tries to bring him back into a 1v1. But even on Cassante, I don't think you're winning those. C9 just keeping everybody out of town. They'll take the Baron, they'll take the jungle, they'll take the fight.
It's a thing of beauty. Cloud9 looking so damn clean here. Fudge with another monster game, just diving back behind Dhokla as he looks for the Q3, just slips behind him, makes him look a little bit silly there, able to push him off. Blaber and Diplex, doing a good job, Fudge and Diplex doing a really good job getting over the wall there to really make sure that there wasn't even a small chance of a steal. There was no way for CLG to be able to get in. It's a really confident move. Committing the ulti, getting the kill on Luger, straight to Baron, and now they're looking for more.
Luger again just getting caught by the Vi ulti, but this time they don't have enough manpower to take him down immediately. This might be CLG's counterattack they need. Luger finally dropped. Blaber buys a moment here in the stasis. Diplex comes in to reinforce, and Contractz can't get home. Zven grabs the kill. It did not matter that they only went after him with 2 dudes. They're 10,000 gold ahead.
It's a 2v5 and you can't even kill Blaber. Give him something. Jeez. CLG struggling here now. They had all 5 there early, trying to capitalize on an aggressive play, trying to punish something, but you said it, they're so far ahead. And Blaber had the stopwatch, got huge value out of it. Now it's a GA. He's on 3 items here. And Contractz is still on 1, so it is looking really, really tough. Berserker's got the IE done now as well, so he is locked and loaded, ready to go here. And Cloud9 looking like they have everything they could possibly need to close this one out.
Contractz lost his footing in this game at 1 minute and 30 seconds on the clock, and he was never able to regain that footing. It's just felt like that shut everything down, and Cloud9 kept the pressure on.
I completely agree, and I think it's a great callback from you. I can't remember the last time I saw a solo top lane invade like that got so much, right? It's such a rare play. It's one of those things, but it doesn't feel cheesy to me because they had all the knowledge to know that it wasn't risky. Fiora can't lose the 1v1 to a Wukong who's on his red buff, and you see all of their 4 members. There's no risk here, right?
Well,
they're gonna go for the dive.
Like there's a whole lot of risk to a dive like this. Either Fudge goes on a rampage, Contractz and Luger go into the ground yet again. They're running out of space to bury all these bodies. Blaber's not even gonna lose his Guardian Angel just yet, as Dhokla at least turns it around, grabs one back on Zven, and will not die himself. Goes back to the fountain to heal up. C9's gonna take the opportunity, grab themselves an inhib. It's still a 2-for-1 trade, but their health bars are dangerously low, so C9 calling it off after that.
Yeah, and no TP on Dhokla or anything, so there's no sort of flank that could be pulled off. Cloud9 going aggressive here. They know they still need to push the pace of the game. They don't want any shenanigans happening here. Don't want to risk anything. They want to have that killer instinct. They're massively ahead. They have the GM buy, so you can afford to dive deep and try to trade kills like this to be able to take objectives, to be able to take the inhibitor and close it out. Contractz trying to get out here, trying to get something back. They do spot Blaber, but
too late.
Not going to be the day you catch Blaber.
No, sir. He's already gone. Even if you caught him, you had to catch him twice because of Guardian Angel, so Blaber, he just walks right back in. He's like, oh, I'm not done. Let's go see what else he can find here. Just charges him. He does not even care. His nearest ally is 1,500 units away, and he just blind queues over the wall because he's ready to go. He sees a ward in the sweeper. He's like, I'm going to clear the ward. I don't care who's there.
Yep. I mean, he knows if they commit to him, he's going to live long enough that his team is going to arrive, right? He's playing Green Smite. He's got the Radiant. He's got the GA. If they full commit all their cooldowns to Blaber, which is what they would have to do to have a chance to kill him, well, you're just going to die as soon as Cloud9 wins. As soon as they show up. We can see Fudge, trying to trade here with Dhokla. Given as good as he takes as Luger arrives and is chunking him down, but it's top lane that is going to be the problem. Once these waves are synced up, you can see the top lane wave is coming in there. Bot lane wave is coming in again, and they're going to dive.
Dhokla on the K'Sante can't even use the ulti. He's just immediately beat down, bursted out. And now I think they might be able to follow it up on Palafox, who flashes away to stay alive as Contractz tries to run some sort of interference. But it's a 1-item Wukong, man. It's a 14,000 gold lead. It's another Seraphine death, and it's Berserker pulling the trigger. C9, 17 minutes. 17 kills in 26 minutes. 14,000 gold ahead. They make easy work out of CLG.
Man, Fudge is putting the league on notice. You can't let him play K'Sante, and apparently you can't let him play against K'Sante either, so really great stuff here from Cloud9. So impressed by the early game play, by the early game planning. Was a really, really intelligent. This level 1 invade effectively ruined Contractz' game, and Cloud9 were able to get so much off of this. Pushing Contractz back to base, level 1, blows his flash. Yes, he gets slightly behind in the 1v1 as a result, but then Blaber is so far ahead of the pace, they're able to pull off this really aggressive dive on bot lane, and they never took their foot off the gas pedal, right? They kept going for these aggressive plays. Blaber and Fudge on top side, finding that dive onto Dhokla, then Diplex coming in. When they get that outplay on the escape, they knock down multiple turrets, they get a charge on the inhibitor. It felt like the game was really falling apart at that point. Cloud9 just never really allowed CLG to have that breathing room to scale up as they needed to do.
And the draft worked out really great for them as well. We were talking about the changes, how changing the patch after just week 1 of LCS, teams were going to have to do some adapting yet again. And hey, they break out the Caitlyn in the AD carry position. Second item, Infinity Edge. Feels great, man. You've got Zven there on the support Kalista. The number popped up during the game, showing that he's like 15-5 on the champion all time or something. Obviously, most of those are not on support Kalista, but he played support Kalista great. He saved Berserker when he needed to save them. You popped out or talked about him popping out that save at just the right moment during that crucial river fight. I mean, everybody was on the right page. Everybody knew what they had to get done. And after Contractz got set behind early, it just felt like CLG did not have any sort of a get-out-of-jail-free card for a Rift that was faltering all over the place.
And I'm just so happy we got to see a game like this, because after last week, I think a lot of people are saying, all right, well, LCS has just got to sit back and all they got to do, in the LCS is play for late game, play for scaling, play for 5v5. And Cloud9 is showing the power of that early game, right? They're showing what it can look like, how overpowering it can be if you don't make any of those mistakes, if you don't allow your opponents that time and that room to breathe to really hit their items and scale it up.
You know what I say, Isaac? When the best teams play fast, the league kicks ass. And Zven and Berserker are going to join the LCS lounge after the break. So don't y'all go anywhere. We will be right back with more LCS.
I'll be right here, I promise.
Typical beginner's mistake.
Yes, they all start from the outside.
So, will we help him?
What else? Here, try it with Red Bull.
Red Bull gives you wings.